Welcome to Get Real this month, and I'm joined by David Lipman. And we started off thinking this was going to be a very dry podcast because a lot of people want to know about the first home guarantee, and we're going to go through the detail of that. But we sort of started talking, and actually we're quite passionate about all of this because we're on the front line of housing affordability and also supply. And Mr. David Lipman, probably more so than most, because you are the number one agent in Penrith and selling a lot of stuff that is affordable and seeing lots of things. So tell me, David, what's your opinion about the first home owner's guarantee?
I think it's good to help people buy property, but I don't think that the problem is helping people buy property. So I don't think it's really needed.
Okay.
Because people can buy property, they're just not buying it where they can afford. So they might be saying they can't afford property, it's not fair, when they can actually afford to buy, just not where they want to live.
Now, that's an interesting point because we sort of reflected that every generation's faced the same thing where they wanted to buy in the inner city and they moved to the suburbs. You know, people do have to move to areas where they can afford. So do you think it's an expectation thing where people just, are a bit cranky that they can't live in the inner city?
It is. It's definitely that.
So I think they should just suck it up.
With all due respect, yes. It's patience. It's playing the long game.
Yes.
You get in the market, grow with the market, get some equity, and then sell that and buy another one.
I think it's interesting. When I look at Penrith, it's definitely beats to a different pace than the rest of our offices, particularly the ones in the inner city. And what I see there is you've got young people in the market, like a lot more young people, and people doing things, buying the one bedroom, selling it to get the two bedroom, buying the house. Like, it's more traditional. So obviously there are people out there who have got the money to want to buy.
Well, they're earning similar money to those in the city, but they don't have the higher cost of land or housing as they do in the city. And the parents are actually very responsible in encouraging their kids that are living at home to save rather than spend. And so they're building up a deposit. And because it's affordable, you can buy a two-bedroom apartment for around $600, $650. Yeah. Whereas that'll get you a studio in the city,
if that,
without parking.
Yeah, without parking. Absolutely. So do you think the first home owner's guarantee is to make it easier to put the deposit together?
Well, essentially, the 5% home loan deposit scheme comes into play because a lot of renters can afford to pay the mortgage, but they can't afford to save up the deposit.
Yeah, that seems to be a very common problem.
But then again, if you look at 5% of $1 million, that's $50,000. And a lot of people might have $20,000 saved, which is still a lot of savings, but you don't have enough money even for a 5% deposit. So there's still, and then even if you're borrowing 95%, that's a lot of money to borrow. So that it's not, I don't think it's really going to help too much, because I'd rather people obviously put more money into the property, but you need to be buying where you can afford to make that actually happen and then grow with the market. But we were talking before about supply, and we've got a supply problem.
We do.
But given that we've got fixed supply because there's not enough building happening, we need to focus on demand. Like, until the supply increases, we've got to focus on demand. And with demand, over the last 4 years, 80% of buyers I'm dealing with are owner-occupiers. So they're actually buying a rented property and replacing it with an owner-occupied property. So that's why rental supply has gone down so much, because the supply is not increasing, and then the demand is changing from an investor to an owner-occupier.
I know, this is controversial, because I saw an article on the weekend that was talking about investors being the problem for the owner-occupiers and holding the market up. And I'm like, that's just crazy. You need both.
There is a real tall poppy syndrome in Australia with thinking that investors are rich and it's not fair to help the investors. I think one real key opportunity is with first home buyers. Let the first home buyers buy property, but don't require them to live in the property for the first 12 months. It used to be 6 months and now it's 12 months. Under 800,000, first home buyers have to live in the property for 12 months to get their stamp duty exemption. But let's just say a first home buyer wants to stay at home and then just get their foot in the door. That would add rental supply overnight.
100%.
It's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
And even with regional purchases, like first-home buyers could buy wherever they can afford, keep it rented. It's actually easier to get a loan too because it's been serviced by the rent.
I completely get that. I mean, you've been saying that for a long time, that they should have changed that. And we do see that, because what happens is they move in for 6 months or 12 months, and then they move home
And
they rent it out. So why not just go straight with the renting out?
You're bringing it forward.
Yeah, and also I suppose there's a lot of talk about tenants and tenants' rights and rents and stuff. And I would have said if the government really wanted to help the tenants, then if they flooded the market with investment stock, then it would take the rents right down.
Well, we're actually in a bit
Not that we want to encourage that because we're on the side of the investor, but it definitely could happen.
Yeah, but I think that we're in a false economy with inflation. Like the reason inflation goes up is because of things like rental prices. Rental prices are going up because of the lack of supply. There's a lack of supply because investors, it's high interest rates and first home buyers have to live in it. Have to live in the property. If you just do the common sense where let the first home buyers buy, rent it out straight away, that'll increase rental supply. That won't put upward pressure on rental prices. It'll be a bit more affordable and it's a win-win-win.
And let me ask you one more, since we're into controversial topics here. What about foreign buyers? Do you think we should let them back in?
Well, they call that a FIRB, which is a Foreign Investment Review Board, where back in 2014 anyone could buy pretty much, but now it has to be reviewed.
Or they can buy off the plan.
You know something? Yeah, well, buying off the plan, and even cap stamp duty for off the plan purchases as well, because they'll be bought by investors and that'll increase rental supply, in a couple of years. But apparently we have about 13 million beds that are spare in Australia because you've got a lot of downsizers, empty nesters that are living in the family home that have got a spare, 2 or 3 bedrooms, and they like that. But if there are incentives to try and move them into over 55 retirement living and not have to pay stamp duty to do that, then we're going to allow these beds to be arguably filled by growing families or knocked down and rebuild with DAs.
I know. Dave, you've got a whole lot of people. I mean, I know that where I live, when I moved in there, everyone had small kids. Everyone's living in the street. Everyone's kids are now in their 20s and they're all left home or gone to uni or whatever. And we're all still living in our houses and no one looks like they're about to move. So it is inefficient. So we've got a lot of problems, haven't we?
Well, there's solutions though.
Oh, okay.
It's just a matter of people listening.
Yes, well, I love that. Yes, that they listen to you. I think that's a very good idea about the first homeowners being able to rent it out, because we could really increase that rental stock, which would take a bit of pressure off people. So do you think a lot of the argument with the criticism of the first home guarantee is that it actually pushes prices up? Like, it's not doing anything to bring prices down because it's just making it easy for people to get into the market, therefore prices sustain.
I think any time that you help people buy property and supply is fixed, there's always going to be upward pressure on price. Like, that's just the laws of demand and supply. So until the government actually increases supply, they've got to stop helping on the demand side people buy property. I think it's just like what I'm saying with the stamp duty exemption to let first home buyers buy and not have to live in the property. I don't think that's any impact on price. I think that's the impact is on the rental supply.
Yeah. And also the supply thing's very controversial as well. I mean, they've just rezoned all of Sydney, but very few people are actually, developers can't actually make things stack. So construction costs are so high, even though they've rezoned all this land, the actual development potential, it's going to take a long time for that to go through.
I've got another idea around trying to boost tradespeople.
Okay, hit us with it.
Into the industry.
This is the environment for a new idea.
So like in my market of Penrith, there's a college called Cath West.
Yeah.
And the Penrith Valley Chamber of Commerce introduced me to this at a monthly event. And they get kids out of school into year 10. They come into the college, they pick a trade, do an apprenticeship for 2 years in 11 and 12. So they're graduating year 12 with an HSC and an apprenticeship. So you're boosting people into the trades straight away after school. That'll boost numbers overnight. But they've only got like 180 students in Emu Plains and 360 odd in Mount Druitt.
Right.
We need to times that by 10, times that by 100.
100%.
Invest in these colleges to boost the tradespeople getting into the market. You don't have to worry about this undersupply of trades, which everyone's talking about.
Yep.
It's like Phil Gould with the Panthers. He focused on grassroots and built from the grassroots. And now you look at every year the Panthers lose players and still win premierships.
Well, there you
except
go.
for this year.
Well, there we have it. David Lipman for Prime Minister. How about that? That was good, actually. That was a really good discussion. I think it was meaty, actually, and sort of covered some of the things that everyone's talking about in the paper. So, anyway, well, thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, David Lipman. We appreciated that, and thank you for joining us here at Get Real with Morton.